IVM.
Hi, we're Team Explainer. Welcome to an all-new episode of Press Decode, a weekly podcast where we take Explainer's mission to declutter the news one step further. Check out our newsletter for more stories and follow us at ExplainerIn to keep up with all the fun things we plan for our Explainer fam. So sit back, relax, and don't let the news give you the blues. I'm Sarah, your host for the day, and today we have both Vagda and Ragini with us today.
Hello.
Like always, we have 3 segments for you. In our big story, we try to wrap our heads around the hottest term in tech, Web 3.0. In our food for thought section, we're going to look at why Google refuses to pull down what's essentially a pro-suicide website. Finally, we will be roasting and toasting our fave and least fave items of the week. All right, let's begin with our big story. It's a new day and a new tech thing I barely understand, but I'm going to try again. The latest on the list, Web 3.0. Turns out both diehard lefties and free market libertarians love it, and investors are throwing oodles of money at it, both here in India and around the world. I'm going to let Ragini tell you all what it is, but I'm going to start with a brief history of the internet that can build a case for why we even need Web 3. Web 1 was back in the 90s and early 2000s when the...
So when, Sarah, you were an embryo... when you were living your previous life.
Yes, indeed. That is the correct time. When the internet was basically a collection of static web pages, you logged on and maybe read or bought a bunch of stuff, but there weren't many ways for you to create content, and there wasn't much money to be made off it either. Web 2 is where we're at currently. Basically, it's when tech giants like Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Twitter, etc., they came along and we entered the era of giant platforms where millions of people came together to post, share, shop all at the same place. And this has had 3 big consequences. We're all content creators. Be it on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, millions of people make content, which is, however, monetized by these platforms in the form of advertising revenue. Number 2, this also means that all these tech giants can collect huge amounts of data on their users, which they, surprise, monetize via advertising. So sure, you get Google Maps, Google Search, or Gmail for free, but that's because you in turn become the product which gets sold to companies. It's number 3, it's led to a crazy centralization of the internet where data is all collected in the cloud by a handful of companies. They then get to make all the rules to decide who creates content, what kind of content is okay, etc. And it also translates to great amounts of wealth being concentrated in the hands of few companies and their investors. Yeah, it's a privacy nightmare to say the least. And thus enters Web 3.
Okay, so as I understood it, a major difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is that Web 3 is decentralized. And right now, everything you do on the internet requires an intermediary. These intermediaries are companies which enable transactions, allow you to search or share stuff, etc., etc. And that's how they collect your data and make money off of it. Simply put, Web 3 aims to remove these middlemen. And how will this be achieved? Through the use of blockchain. Okay, so before I try to explain what blockchain is, I would like to give a disclaimer. Till I was about 15, I did not know that Silicon Valley was an actual place. I just thought people were talking about like silicon plantations, like tea plantations or something. So excuse me if this explanation is very elementary. I will try. But
honestly, sounds valid. Silicon Valley में और क्या ही होगा?
हाँ, silicon उगाते हैं और क्या करते हैं? So basically, blockchain is a type of shared database which is distributed across thousands of computers across the world. Each transaction is recorded in something called a block, which is then linked in a chain to previous cryptocurrency transactions. So basically, the data is decentralized. Okay? If that's the one thing you have to take away from this, it's that.
Not to be an ass, but once the first ground rules of question answer, you can't use the same words in the question in the answer.
Listen, I've already given my disclaimer, so it's okay.
Moving on swiftly.
Yeah. Okay, so I think Olga Mack, who is a blockchain lecturer at UC Berkeley, actually has put it best. She says, and I'm quoting, "When you press a button to switch on lights, do you understand how the electricity is made? Certainly not. You don't have to know how electricity works to understand the benefits. Same is true of blockchain. And yeah, Olga, I can take your word for it.
That is wild logic. Okay.
Right? Like, I don't get it, but it sounds good, So,
I'm not gonna get behind this.
I'm 100% behind this.
to recap, the big plus of Web3 is decentralization, and we are going to achieve this through blockchain. Okay, no more tech questions for me. That was my tech gyan for the day. Okay, so, but what is great about decentralization, you ask? For password forgetters like me, everything, because I'm going to quote directly from the Web3 explainer we did. Today, you have to create a separate account on each platform you use. So each time you hand over your information to that company. In Web3, you only have a single account and you go seamlessly from shopping to email to social media using that login. What's important is that the data tied to your account is stored on a public blockchain and not owned by any company. You own your data. And obviously, this is a very elementary explanation of what Web3 will be. But like I said, I am done with my tech gyan for the day. And I'm also tired of Mark and Jeff being all up in my business. So this sounds like my thing. Web3, bring it on. I'm ready. But in the spirit of unbiased journalism, I do have to offer a contrarian view. NPR spoke to James Grimmelman, who is a Cornell University professor who studies law and tech. And he really isn't a fan of Web3. He said, and I'm again quoting directly, blockchains are interesting and solve some difficult problems in new ways. They're probably going to end up in the toolkit that the next internet is built off of, but that doesn't mean the internet is going to be built around them. There are a lot of people who have money to invest and they need some vision to throw money at. Wow. So this guy is truly grim, Millman, because I just started to get excited about this. So I'm very confused now. Do I like this or not? Someone form my opinion for me.
I have one takeaway. Like, Ragini may have messed up with using block and chain in her definition, but she gets 10 marks for CBSE answer. She gave both sides of the argument.
Right?
Like, Pele, this is why it's great, but also don't forget.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have opinion.
I'm here to tell you, Grimmelman has got it wrong. I mean, when you're speaking of money to invest, according to a figure quoted by New York Times, venture capitalists have invested more than $27 billion in crypto and related projects in 2021.
Damn.
So I think, I mean, if we really lived in times of investors looking for a vision, would Paytm really have gotten where it is?
Yeah.
Remember around the time when the IPO tanked, it was reported that 70% of the eye-watering amounts of money that it raised through SoftBank and Ant Group and all of the other investors, most of that money, 70% of that money, is burned primarily to fund its losses with no profitable model inside. So I am not sure you're looking for a vision, as an investor.
Yeah, Grim Millman is right for no reason.
Yes. So India is hopping fast on that crypto lane as well. I mean, it's not just a global thing, like a US thing. Yep, even PMO is on board.
I know where this is going.
In case you guys missed it, this last Sunday, Modi ji's Twitter handle was compromised and the hackers published a post that falsely claimed India adopted Bitcoin as their legal tender and Government of India has bought 500 Bitcoins to distribute among residents of the country. Of course!
See, this is how little I'm in touch with tech that when I heard about this, I was like, wait, so is that a bad thing to tweet from the PM's account? I don't get it.
See, you should have seen the tweet. It had a shady looking link and lots of emojis. So you knew.
No, it had emoji.
It had emojis.
Oh my god.
But it was also the only day of the week that I wasn't up at 2 a.m. And so I woke up the next morning and I saw it and I was so mad. I missed seeing it in real time. So mad.
Jokes aside, guys, Indian VC firms are betting big. One of these, Antler India, has committed to invest in 25 to 30 startups in the blockchain and Web3 space in the next 2 to 3 years. They've promised to make a minimum investment of $250,000. Sequoia India has made about 20 investments in Web3 startups, mostly decentralized crypto finance companies like Beta Finance, Clearpool, CoinShift, and I'm throwing these names at you, but I actually went and Googled what each of these do because I had no idea. And Phase, which is a cricket NFT platform. Yep, where fans can collect, use, play, and interact with cricket through NFTs. any of this getting to your brain?
I am not sure.
Yes.
But you know what? Like I know how popular it's getting in India because I don't know if you saw any of the IPL matches. All the ads, literally all the commercial in between, overs and when people would lose a wicket. Yeah. So this time I don't know whether you guys watched the IPL, but in between matches, in between overs, when you have those commercials, all of those commercials were crypto. क्रिप्टो एक्सचेंज क्रिप्टो पे ये खरीदिए यहाँ पे फंड लीजिए ये वाला वॉलेट है literally everything was crypto. I was so amused. But we're still like largely sitting in the finance space of Web3. Experts say that advantages of blockchain technology are not limited to finance, which is all that we've been seeing up until now. It can basically be used in any space that requires either privacy or authenticity or both at the same time too. So think of your IDs, your digital locker, your password. Oh, yeah, Ragini. Or think of writing a will, that needs to be private but needs to be authentic, so can be recorded on the blockchain. Or medical record keeping. We need to make sure it's authentic, so the blockchain technology can ensure that, and it's also kept as private information, right? A model of Web3 that is already in operation is the decentralized social media where users earn and trade crypto. DeSo, which is decentralized social media, is a network of blockchain apps where users are paid for popularity, participation, their posts, and their work. I mean, can you imagine this? It's like a decentralized version of what influencers are already doing.
Yeah. Sounds a little bit like Reddit also.
But do you get paid on Reddit?
Not paid,
but like popularity-wise.
In terms of community, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So, but there are already quite a few options for them to monetize their work for content creators. For example, there's this Mirror.xyz, which is a crypto-based writers network that allows monetization through the sale of NFTs. Then there is something called Sapien, which is an Ethereum-based social network for podcasters. Hello! Video creators and writers to build an audience and monetize their work. There's something called Stoner Cat, which helps animators to tokenize their films and collect in collectible NFTs. And fans can buy their tokens to access the content and even participate in the content production process. Then there's something called Vest and Royal, where music fans can buy ownership in songs directly from their favorite artists and earn royalties on them. So all of this is happening already on models that are existing. So I don't know about you guys, man, but I'm liking this space. I'm kind of liking it. And I feel like with every passing week on Press Decode, I'm becoming a tech bro.
On that extremely sad note, we come to the end of our first segment. We will be right back after a short break. You're listening to Press Decode and the IVM Podcast Network. We're going to try and get Wagda back.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Vaisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.
Hello and welcome back to Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network. We're Team Splainer, and make sure you follow us at SplainerIn on Instagram and Twitter to keep up with the Splainer fam. It's time for some food for thought. A content warning, we're going to discuss suicide. So in case you guys want to log out, this would be the time to do so. Okay, so a recent New York Times deep dive exposed a website that instructs people on how to die by suicide and has even live blogged several such deaths. This site, which we will refrain from naming for obvious reasons, considers itself pro-choice. That is, pro people having the choice to die by suicide and access to information about how to do it, alongside a community that will help them do so without judging them or trying to keep them alive, essentially making it in equal parts a message board and a macabre instructional manual. The site, unlike other suicide websites, isn't about prevention, but provides explicit directions on how to die. It was started in March 2018 by two people who spent a lot of effort in keeping their identities secret, from moving servers from one country to the other using ELYSIS. NYT, however, claims to have found one of them in Alabama and the other in Uruguay. You can read more about the two founders over at New York Times. I will link the article in the description. As of now, they've managed to attract tens of thousands of people to their website. The site allows people in live chats to discuss in detail hanging, poison, guns, and gas. In some morbid meet and greet style, it also allows for people to meet face to face and then die by suicide together. Participants are allowed to nudge each other, and those who follow through are memorialized as brave, legends, or heroes. Despite it being an anonymous site, NYT has managed to identify at least 45 people who have killed themselves through the site in the US, UK, Italy, Canada, and Australia. The youngest of them being 16 years old and the oldest being 58. When contacted, Google said it had no intention of pulling down the site, citing their commitment to give people open access to information. They also pointed to local laws when it comes to important and complex questions of what information people should be able to find online, essentially wiping their hands off any sort of accountability. But the local law clause has allowed countries like Australia, Germany, and Italy to restrict access to the site, while American law enforcement has been reluctant to take action. But that's the thing, right? What's the deal with suicide in the law? While states do have legislation against actively aiding suicide, where does one draw the line with online activity? Is it freedom of expression and, like Google says, access to information? Or is it actively abetting suicide?
That's exactly what food for thought is. We don't know. I mean, I can tell you what the law says. The law says that in India, attempt to suicide was illegal according to Section 309 of the IPC. There was some back and forth on its constitutionality in the Supreme Court, but the confusion was set aside. There was some back and forth on its constitutionality in the Supreme Court, but the confusion was set aside when the Mental Health Care Act came about in 2017. One of its provisions basically made Section 309 ineffective. But until 2017, a person attempting suicide could, under law, be tried and punished for such attempt with a fine or up to a year in jail or both. And in most cases, the law was only used to harass families to pay up a price to the police for not registering a case. Abetment to suicide, on the other hand, is still a crime. And it could be when you're instigating or somebody or aiding somebody to die by suicide. Under 306 of the IPC, it is still a crime and it's punishable with imprisonment up to 10 years in jail. So that's the law. This is the law which India uses to not allow euthanasia also. But whether the website is abetting suicide or not, I'm not sure. There are many countries that permit assisted suicide. Some call it assisted dying because euthanasia can also be for people who, without the consent of the person suffering. Some parts of the US allow physician-assisted suicide in some circumstances, like when you have a terminal illness. Proving that you're of sound mind is important rather than of unsound mind.
Right.
Others like Belgium, Canada, Spain, and the Netherlands do not require terminal illness as a precondition. But here's something that really made me think. I mentioned the negative connotation that comes with suicide, right? There is a serious attempt to distinguish attempted dying from suicide, as suicide is commonly performed by those not terminally ill. There's a growing body of literature in disability jurisprudence that problematizes the oppression faced by those who have suicidal thoughts. That society and its many institutions treat their wish to die as irrational or illegitimate. Professor Alexander Barrell coins the term suicidism for this oppression and makes a case to validate suicidal ideation as a legitimate experience and create a safe space to listen to their voice. And it's a very real need to have your experience validated. Every human needs that validation. And much of that can come from a forum of people who have similar ideation, which is where I think of this website. And support groups are also very common for people ideating suicide and are used by mental health practitioners too. The only difference is intention. Those heading to a mental health professional are seeking help to want to live. Those heading to this website are being lauded as heroes for wanting to die and performing suicide. So the intentions are opposite. Support groups are usually led and moderated by trained mental health professionals who understand the importance of freely talking about suicide ideation, which is not really something that we can say about this website.
That's actually a very fair point in terms of intention, right? I think that helps me in my head to understand where I fall in the middle of freedom of expression versus.
So I want to read out Google's statement regarding this website because I think it's pretty interesting. So a Google spokesperson spoke to Futurism magazine and said this. So I'm quoting, "This is a deeply painful and challenging issue, and we continue to focus on how our products can help people in vulnerable situations. If people come to Google to search for information about suicide, they see features promoting prevention hotlines that can provide critical help and support. We have specialized ranking systems designed to prioritize the highest quality results available for self-harm queries, and we also block autocomplete predictions for those searches. That's all great. But this next part is where they kind of lose me, because the spokesperson said, we balance these safeguards with our commitment to give people open access to information. We're guided by local law when it comes to the important and complex questions of what information people should be able to find online. The ending bit kind of reminds me of, like, when you had true and false questions in school and you didn't know the answer, so you made like a hybrid TNF.
Wait, so an answer like yours in the previous section?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, you're like, see, IDK, but kuch bolna to hai. So here it is. Because as the conversation around mental health has gained traction in India and all over the world, actually, the word suicide is almost always linked with mental illness. Again, there's like almost a kind of able-bodied monopoly, if I may say so, around suicide, where if someone has suicidal thoughts, it must be because they are mentally ill in some form. And this completely neglects the fact that while we are all born equal, sure, unfortunately, the world we're born into is not built to treat us all the same. It is worth noting, though, that NYT did not include physician-assisted suicides in the charts that they showed mapping increase in suicides, which brings me back to Google. They lost me in the latter part of their statement because they basically contradicted everything they said in the first part. While in the first part, they talk about being against the content shown on the website, in the second part, they basically say, but who are we to judge? And this is where I'm like, okay, but if not you, then who else is going to judge, right? Because governments are bound by constitutions to allow free speech, but Google is bound by no one to do anything, basically. They have complete autonomy to decide what content they choose to host or not host on their platform. And their statement basically adds to the whole able-bodied narrative of, if you're having suicidal thoughts, you're mentally ill, you need help. Honestly, if you guys find the story interesting, definitely read the NYT deep dive. But I think what's really interesting here is the fact that this site actually sprung up after Reddit closed a forum with the same mission. And if you know anything about the internet, you guys know that if Reddit did not want to host the content, it must have been seriously questionable, because what does Reddit not host? There is everything on Reddit.
That is the most valid observation you have made, Ragini.
Thank you so much.
No, I think Reddit is quite moderated. I mean, Reddit came about as a nice, community moderated kind of a space after all of the anonymous 4chan and all that shit that was there in the earlier internet. I mean, it exists even now, but the popularity of it has comparatively gone down.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Reddit is definitely more monitored because they obviously removed this content from their website. But even then, like even monitored Reddit is
it's still a freer space.
For sure. Pretty big supporter of freedom of speech.
Anyway, on that note, we come to the end of this segment. We will be right back after a short break. You're listening to Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun Dugirala talks to Divyanshu Damani, co-founder and CEO at Tag Mango. The two discuss how content creators can monetize their content, going beyond the traditional ads and brand deals. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is in conversation with Ashna Modi, clinical psychologist at ASA Wellness. They discuss the habit of deservability and gratitude. On Probation Se Promotion Tak, host Abhinav talks about business networking and teaches us how to enhance those networking skills. On The Longest Constitution, Priya gives us a peek into the history of caste-based discrimination and how our constitution is committed to overcoming that. And on The Musafir Stories, the hosts are joined by author and poet Mihir Vatsa. They discover the plateau town of Hazaribagh. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And also do check out our YouTube channels. We have a number of them. You can get them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And remember, if you're enjoying this show, or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. It really does help us spread the word. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network. It's time for our final segment this week, Roast or Toast. So, who has the least fave item? It's not me.
I do. My least favorite item this week was the fact that India nixed a climate change resolution. India used its seat on the Security Council to vote against a resolution that proposed placing climate change on the Council's agenda and consider how it affects conflicts across the world. The reasoning provided was it will provide disproportionate influence to a handful of developed countries on climate change decision making. Okay, so I'm in Delhi right now, guys, and either I'm just feeling too cold this winter or climate change is real. Okay, let me just say. And the only other country to agree with us was Russia. And the last time India and Russia were on one side, the Berlin Wall was still up. So I think the days of calling ourselves a developing country are long gone. And why we do this? I don't like it.
Yes, why we do this indeed. Almost the holiday season, and this is the only time of the year I'm not a grumpy cat. So I have a fave item this week. The Natural History Museum in London too got into the Christmas spirit and decked out its T-Rex in a suitably hideous holiday sweater. And it wasn't an easy process. I quote, "The entire process of knitting a sweater that would fit a dinosaur took about 100 hours to complete. The first sweater was too large. Getting a turtleneck over the head of the dinosaur was also a problem. They ultimately decided to add a zipper to the sweater's back." Yes, I know this is a super visual item and the dumbest thing to say on an audio pod, but y'all just have to see Mr. Dino for yourself to know why this is the most delightful thing ever. I'm going to link a time lapse of the process behind the team getting the sweater on below, and guys, it's going to make your week.
It really is. It's very cute. I loved it. Okay, so my new tech biz bro identity loves this story. Tesla will now accept payment in Dogecoin for its merchandise on an experimental basis.
Wait, I have a question. Is it Dogecoin or Dogecoin?
I have no idea. Dogecoin sounds cuter, so I'm going to go with Dogecoin. No, I love this story mainly because I am so amused by this world. We actually live in a world where we have a meme currency.
I swear.
I mean, we have like photo of Gandhiji on our notes, man. What does this mean for our generation?
Are you saying you don't want Gandhiji on your note, Vagda? Is this breaking on press decode?
I'm laughing at how important the Dogi is to our generation.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Good save, good save.
It should just really be a reminder to not take yourself or anything too seriously because you are all living in Dogecoin land. And shout out to Boris Johnson for pioneering the move to appreciate cartoon lines. Go Peppa Pig world!
I love your I mean, I also really love this story, but it was mostly because every time Musk says they're going to apply, accept crypto, the prices keep fluctuating and all these crypto boys lose it. That's why I liked it. But
count me in those crypto boys.
Oh god!
Without any investment in cryptos, by the way, I just can't seem to get around to it. So.
But I stand behind Vagda's reasoning for why this is a wonderful story better. Like, yes.
I agree.
Yes.
We are truly 21st century.
Mm.
And that was our show this week. Thank you so much for joining us on Press Decode. You can catch us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast Network. And guys, please remember, don't let the news give you the blues.
Remember the days when our granny used to narrate once upon a time stories? Let's bring back the good old days of moral stories with Storytime Tamil. Hi, I am Ravishankar Balachandran, host of Storytime Tamil podcast. I would like you to entertain and educate your children with stories from Storytime Tamil. Tune in to the new episode sharp at 7 p.m. every day on IVM website, IVM podcast app, YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Given the unprecedented times our nation is going through, where positive is now a dreaded word, Smile India gets you delightful news from across the country about people and places that continue to spread the much-needed hope and positive vibes. I am Shifa Maitra, and you can hear Smile India with me every Thursday on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Oh, and did I tell you Smile India is available in both English and Hindi.